Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to this Unbreakable Self training session. In today's session, we're going to talk about preparing your mind for the challenges of the day. Let's dive into it right now. Hey, what's going on? This is in today's lesson, what we're speaking on specifically is the one thing that you need to do in order to truly advance yourself. And I read this morning in a book I'm reading, and it was powerful because I realized I wasn't doing this for myself for so long. And that one thing is you need to take responsibility for the things that you are not responsible for. And what do I mean by that? Imagine this. Imagine that you are an innocent child and something traumatic happens to you. Maybe you get abducted, maybe you get molested, maybe that you are surrounded by gang members, maybe you see your parents fighting, maybe there's chaos in your life that you are not responsible for. Well, you are taking in that energy and you're holding on to it. So many of us have a thing. We all have that thing. It doesn't matter what that thing is, we all have it. Maybe you were told that you're never gonna amount to anything and then that's holding you back. Whatever the situation is, you were told as a child, as you were developing, or you saw something as you were developing, that there is something that is holding you back. Now, it's not until you take responsibility for the things that you're not responsible that anything will happen. So until you do that, nothing will happen. Until you finally sit down and you take responsibility. And what does that look like? That means looking at yourself, taking an inventory. What are your shortcomings? What is stopping you from being the best version of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally every single day to serve another? If you're not being a more effective person, to be more useful for others, then there is nothing else worth living for. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go off yourself by any means, but you need to look at yourself and you consider, if I want to have a meaningful life, if I want to have a great life, if I want to have a life of impact and meaning, I have to serve others. That is the only way. That's the only way I know. That's the only way I've ever been told that has ever worked for me. Anytime I'm selfish, it's because I'm not taking responsibility and I'm not serving others. So that is the number one thing that you have to focus on. So you have to focus on taking responsibility for the things that you are not responsible for. Now, I heard this story that it was a great story, and actually this did actually happen to me, and this is kind of an interesting thing. I'll give you the story from my perspective. It's a combination of a mythological tale and also a story that actually literally happened to me while I was overseas in service. So we were running checkpoint security in this area of Baghdad, and we had this gentleman that came through, and his son was special needs, and he had to go from where he was in the general populace of Iraq, and he had to come onto base, and he had to do some work. Well, he couldn't bring his son because his son didn't have credentials to get into base. So his son had to just hang out. Now his son is special needs. And what the reason I'm telling you this is because his son was dropped off at my doorstep and I was now responsible for his son, this son that is special needs. It's the same idea that if somebody drops off a baby at your doorstep, it's not your fault that somebody dropped that off, but you are now responsible for caring for that thing, for caring for that child. And what happened for me is the exact same thing. Someone dropped off a child in front of me and said, you are now responsible. So I had to actually put that child in a position where he is safe from enemy out there in this war zone, and actually make sure that he has water and he has food throughout the day and shelter so that he can survive, because his father had to go do what he had to do. He had to be responsible for his family, but again, his son didn't have credentials, so now I'm responsible. Now I could sit there and gripe all day and say, oh, well, woe is me, it's not my fault, I'm not gonna take care of that kid. But instead, I actually took care of that child and said, hey, I'm gonna take care of you, I'm gonna take responsibility. And what I noticed is that that kid actually really enjoyed me, and anytime that he came through the checkpoint, he and I were buds. Now, I'm telling you this story because this comes through in so many different ways for ourselves, for any of us, and what we experience, the way we experience that is if we see something that is not our fault, then we say, no, it's not my fault, I'm not gonna take responsibility, and what's gonna happen is that you become fractured instead of becoming integrated. So the point that I'm making here for you today is whatever comes to your doorstep, doesn't matter if it's a child, doesn't matter if it's something that happened in your past, it is your duty, it is your responsibility to take responsibility for yourself, for the actions how you react to the world and how you show up in the world. All right, guys, take that information, use it today, put it into your implementation strategies. And if you found this information helpful, please take a minute, share it with others. Please take a minute and subscribe to the channel so that you can get more information just like this. Guys, thank you for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the training session tomorrow.